part 5 of the Feminism series, which I've titled Confessions of a G.I. Jane. First of all, I apologize for the long sabbatical between videos. I just made a very unexpected trip out of state, as a matter of fact several states away. I am in the South. Now, before we get started, I'd like to say that I failed to summarize very well in my last video. But the reason for pointing out the lack of heroes was to establish the link between the feminist agenda and the decrease of real men. You probably got that if you've been watching my other videos, but I just wanted to clarify because there seemed to be a lot of confusion. For example, I got a channel comment from a man who will remain nameless because he later apologized to me for his comment and cleared up the misunderstanding. To me, it was just another indicator that there are so many men who have been so burned and so shamed and treated so unjustly by feminists out there that they don't trust even anti-feminist women. They assume that they're selling something, that they're just as selfish as every other feminist out there, that they can't possibly actually have the interests of both men and women at heart. And who can blame them? Now, I used the movie clips that I did because they portray men who embody a non-warped version of masculinity. Not because they largely happen to be in war movies or violent movies, and not because they happen to be good-looking. Now, it's Hollywood. Everything Hollywood produces is generally going to have highly attractive individuals in it. That does not change the fact that I chose those clips based on the characters portrayed and not on their appearances. Anyway, through all of the flack, I have developed a great affinity for the remove button on YouTube. With a single click, I can delete a foul and offensive post, and I also have an even greater appreciation for all those who come out in support of women and men who oppose feminism, and the support that you've shown me has been absolutely overwhelming. I can't even tell you how much it means, and I try to get back to as many people as I possibly can, but sometimes life gets in the way, and I don't always have the time that I would like to respond. Just know that I do see everything that you post, and I do appreciate it immensely. Now on to today's video, Confessions of a G.I. Jane. This is completely unscripted, unplanned, no notes. I just wanted to share with you some personal experiences with feminism in certain jobs I went into which I expected to be in the minority and, if anything, discriminated against, and found it quite to the opposite. That because I was in the minority, I was esteemed and upheld and actually given unfair advantages and privileges for being a woman. You're probably wondering about the G.I. Jane title. No, I was never in the Army. I was and am, however, in the Civil Air Patrol, which is the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force, which is a very fancy-sounding title, but ultimately we are not, quote, real military. We do not deploy. We are not combat trained. We only do search and rescue. 95% of all inland search and rescue missions in the country are performed by Civil Air Patrol. We carry out Air Force assigned search and rescue missions. We have a cadet program which trains youth in military customs and courtesies, drill, marching, PT, the physical side of things, aerospace education, a lot of that. No, we're not like the Boy Scouts. Nothing against them. Now, I joined Civil Air Patrol at the age of 16. Growing up, I had heard about the military a lot, and I was raised with an emphasis on character more than almost anything else. I really wanted to serve my country, and ultimately I wanted an outlet for that character. I wanted to do something that actually needed it, where it would count for something, where it would actually help people. And despite everything that I'm going to say in this video, don't get me wrong, Civil Air Patrol is great, it is a great mission, and it's good for young people, so you should really check it out. However, my time in Civil Air Patrol merely served to confirm what I had been taught about feminism and what I had observed elsewhere. I had gone in with feminism not on my mind whatsoever, and very quickly realized that it was alive and well there. Girls weren't merely given the opportunity to succeed. It became very apparent to me very quickly that it was important and good that women achieve. They didn't really care about the guys as much. A male and a female could be promoted to the same rank, and the female is the one who would get the attention, because she was a girl, because it was novel, because she was supposed to, because it was cool, because it was politically correct, because it furthered the feminist agenda, because of whatever reason on which you might want to speculate. And this bothered me because it was clearly a little demeaning to the guys, but also because it was humiliating to me. I started to wonder, how badly would I have to fail before I was recognized as failing? Now, for the record, I was a very good cadet. I loved my job, and I succeeded, which I applied myself to. I promoted through and to the cadet officer ranks very quickly. I enjoyed learning and taking tests and doing my job, and a lot of the badges and achievements and promotions and such were objective rather than subjective, so I knew it wasn't that I was being promoted because I was a female. But there were some which were subjective, and that always caused me to wonder. And even when it came to promotions, I started to take a look at the physical fitness tests. As the auxiliary of the Air Force, and wearing the Air Force uniform as we do and such, our PT tests kind of followed the Air Force's grading system. So it involved push-ups, sit-ups, sit and reach, a shuttle run, which is a sprint, basically, and then also a timed mile run. I know, 1 mile. So when I was a cadet second lieutenant, I think it was, I was chosen to be the primary representative for my squadron at the Cadet Advisory Council, which is kind of like the Congress of Civil Air Patrol. The regulations and run the cadet program, create policy. During that time, I took a close look at the PT standards. And it wasn't the fact that the male and the female standards were different that shocked me. Anyone with common sense would recognize that males are almost always going to outperform females physically. Very physically different, thus the standards were different. And I didn't tackle that specifically. It wasn't the difference that bothered me. It was the enormous gap of difference between the requirements. The requirements changed based on your age, the promotion you were going for, and your gender. And I was looking at one particular phase for one particular promotion. A male of a certain age had to run a mile in, I think it was just under 7 minutes or just over 7 minutes. Let's say 7-something. And a female of the same age had to run it in 10-something, 10 plus. Now, first of all, I can walk a mile in 10-something minutes. But second, that kind of a difference isn't taking male and female differences simply into account. It's giving the females an enormous edge on the males. Let's put it a different way. There isn't a female out there, or at least in Civil Air Patrol, or so I hope, who couldn't run the mile, or perhaps even walk it, in 10-something minutes. But there are plenty of males who were failing the 7-something standard. Not because the males were more out of shape either. That was the other thing. There were plenty of overweight females who were passing and promoting. In other words, it demanded a higher level of fitness from males, even taking into account the fact that male and female levels of physical fitness would be different. Okay, I had to play with the settings there for a minute. As the sun goes down, I'm losing my light. So, at the next Cadet Advisory Council meeting, I asked them to table that issue. Female PT standards. That's actually how it read on the agenda. Female PT standards. And I brought to bear all the incriminating evidence, and was met with the typical comeback, which is that females are anatomically different, no kidding, and thus they need more of an edge in order to promote. Keep in mind that I wasn't even tackling the fact that the standards were different here. I was not arguing the females should have the same standards as males, although it could be argued that if the males need to be at that standard in order to do a certain jobs, then should not the females also? But here I was just saying, let's look at how grossly different these are. The fact is, I said, we're giving females an advantage over the males. We're promoting plenty of incompetent and physically out-of-shape females, and denying promotion to plenty of males who would easily pass the female standards, and in fact, would almost pass their own. And I was met with the most ridiculous feedback. I got absolutely pummeled from all sides. There were very few who supported me. A few guys saw the logic of what I was saying, but didn't really speak up. There was one female in particular, and it's funny because she's now at the Air Force Academy. She's the one who used the females are anatomically different than males excuse. And I said, yeah, I understand, but look. I mean, seriously, a 3-minute difference on a mile, if you are a runner, you would know is enormous. It's astonishing. I was told, well, this is based off of Air Force PT standards / the Presidential Fitness Challenge. And I made the argument that, well, that's nice, but If the presidential fitness challenge causes us to unfairly give an advantage to females and disadvantage males, we need to take another look at it. We don't accept the status quo because it is the status quo. Since when do we accept how things are for the sake of how things are? And finally, they tried flattering me and saying, well, not all women are as physically fit as you, and not everybody is a marathon runner, which I was not at that time, by the way. I later did run an extreme trail marathon, but at that time wasn't into long-distance running at all. And that was perhaps the first time that I felt the fires of indignation absolutely welling up inside of me, as I saw these people, chuckling to themselves and passing it off as a, well, you're just really physically fit. That really irritated me, because they were using every trick in the book to excuse this female supremacy doctrine. And it was like the emperor who wore no clothes. For all of my insisting and for all the evidence I brought out, and all the logic, all the facts, all the statistics, none of it mattered to them. And they pitched it out the window and pitched me off of the agenda without a single supporting document except perhaps the Presidential Fitness Challenge, and told me never to bring it up again. Apparently it would have been too much work. Well, yeah, sometimes revolution is a lot of work. Sometimes the truth isn't fun to hear. Sometimes it's not simple to implement. That doesn't make it any less the truth. That incident really helped to open my eyes to the reality of the evils of feminism. And suddenly I started to see things I hadn't really seen before. Every time I would, earn a promotion, every time I would earn an award, I would scoop up honor flight or, the honors at an encampment, at training. It was immediately a big thing. I had many officers tell me I was the poster child of Civil Air Patrol, that I had it all, that I was the model cadet. And while I was good at what I did and passionate about what I did, I couldn't help but feel that a lot of it did have to do with the fact that I was a female, because I knew guys who were succeeding as much as I was, and not getting quite the same amount of recognition. The other thing about Civil Air Patrol, and especially the cadet program, was its emphasis on leadership. And women were pushed to lead so much more than the guys, in my opinion. But I cannot count the number of instances where I saw women pushed forward and guys held back. It wasn't enough for women to do their part. It wasn't enough for women to contribute. They had to be out in the lead. They had to be running the show. And there were all too many guys who were completely fine with that. Again, if you hear a lie long enough, it starts to become truth in your mind. I'm no longer a cadet in Civil Air Patrol, by the way, but I am an officer. I'm the public affairs officer for my squadron. So I write news articles and take pictures and ultimately make Civil Air Patrol look good, ironically enough. Now, one of my reasons in sharing all this was to simply share my experiences with feminism, but another reason is because a lot of the flack I've gotten from feminists has been shot at me with the assumption, and sometimes even the statement, that I'm old-fashioned, I must not have any independence whatsoever, I must not have a personality, I must not have a mind of my own. Well, clearly, come on, I'm doing videos on feminism on YouTube. That I neither want nor am capable of living a life outside the home and of raising children, and that ultimately my opinion is rooted in me being naive and in whatever I've been taught. Those who know me and know some of my adventures would know that none of that could be further from the truth. I have held jobs that the majority of women will never hold, in areas which women do not ordinarily occupy. I've proven myself to be capable, and sometimes even more capable than the men I have worked with. More than that, I have witnessed discrimination against plenty of men who should have passed me up, and didn't, not because their own lack of ambition or their own lack of capability or leadership, but because the system and the agenda was holding them back. People also like to believe that it's different in the military, and it is not. In fact, it's become quite the hotbed of feminism. A large number, and perhaps the majority of my friends, I would say, are in the military, and the stories I hear from them are appalling. Guys and girls alike. The push for women to succeed and the consequent lowering of the standards has ultimately resulted in the question, gender equality or combat effectiveness, which God do we serve? And America has clearly made her choice. And the next video, part 6, which will be next to last in this series, will be focusing on the backlash of feminism. Thanks for your support and your graciousness. Continue to speak out against feminism and to think freely without the aid of social programming. This is Christiana saying good night and God bless you.